Yeah.
All right, good. All right, and we have started recording. Okay, so just to introduce myself to you guys, my name is Cherie Goff. I'm a specialist in safety and health, and I am the HSC department lead here at Ironwood Business Consulting. I'm well versed in conducting safety assessments, mentoring, and coaching newer safety professionals. And here internally, I'm our go-to person for crisis management. I began my safety career a little over 10 years ago in a manufacturing facility where I worked in a role um, bridging the gap between quality and safety. Sorry, I'm letting people in. 1 second. Okay. Um, I do believe in the importance of understanding the workforce's contribution to the company and the strong team bond between departments. Um, I was invited to work with an international team to create a behavioral-based safety program. I was successfully taught and implemented in the US, UK, and France. And I was also certified to teach an internal company safety standard and facilitate those trainings to the workforce. I tell you all this to kind of give you a little bit of insight of my background, and also because these two programs provided me with a pretty vast insight into what works when developing a safety culture and what does not. In my consulting work and in presenting to groups similar to this one, the topic of creating or supporting a safety culture comes up pretty often without fail. What I find most often is that there's a varied understanding of what is needed by leaders and employees to ingrain a safety culture into the fabric of their organization. It's important to begin with a common definition of safety culture. And there's several. I don't know if you've ever went and looked online to see what safety culture is, or if you guys looked into it prior to showing up to this today, but there are many interpretations of what that is. It's basically a set of core values and behaviors that emphasize safety as an overriding priority. So creating a positive safety culture within an organization has shown to dramatically reduce the rate of injuries and accidents in the workplace. However, to effectively develop that culture of safety, we have to look beyond accident and injury prevention and start examining the way that we work. Understanding workplace culture within an organization is pretty easy. You just kind of have to stand back and look around at the way that things are being done. The concept of safety culture looks beyond specific safety policies and programs and looks at the mindsets and the behaviors towards safety across the entire company, from your stakeholders to your employees, your managers, and your owners. So in this presentation, we're going to address, like, what is a safety culture? We're going to talk a little bit about some of the incidents that started that conversation that got people talking about what a safety culture is and how they're impacted. The importance of having a safety culture, the difference between negative and positive cultures, and we'll kind of finish on how you can evaluate your own safety culture where you are. So as I said, hundreds of definitions out there for what safety culture is. It seems that every time there's a new CEO appointed, there's a new description or a new definition of safety culture. Everyone tends to redefine it. So here's a few descriptions that you'll find when you go out and look online. Human Factors and Ergonomic Society says a definition of safety culture is the enduring value and priority placed on the worker and the public safety by everyone in every group at every level of an organization. A little bit more comprehensive definition of safety culture is the product of individual and group values, attitudes, perceptions, competencies, and patterns of behavior that determine the commitment to and style and proficiency of organizations' health and safety management. So really, it's a mindset that has roots in the organization's policies, philosophies, and management approaches. Or for short, it's the way people do safety in their around here is what they'll say. So it's the way we do safety around here in our company. to speak to some of the accidents that started having people really look at their internal safety culture and started these types of conversations. I'm just going to give you a little bit of history, a quick history lesson here. One of the incidents that started was back in March 28th of 1979. And it was when a combination of equipment failure and operator error led to the partial meltdown of a power plant's Unit 2 reactor and resulted of a release of radioactive material. After they completed all the investigations, they determined that the root cause of this was inattention and lack of training. That, as we've defining what safety culture is, kind of gives you an idea of they went back and had a conversation after they came up with this root cause analysis and said, what is our culture here?
There we go.
Let me mute these mics real quick. Another incident that occurred happened at the Fairchild Air Force Base near Spokane, Washington in 1994. It was a crash of a B-52 bomber during a retirement run. Killed everyone on board and was directly related to leadership failing to correct known overt rule breaking of an aggressive pilot. The pilot that day maneuvered the bomber beyond its operational limits and lost control. They did an accident investigation and concluded the crash was primarily attributed to that pilot's personality and behavior and the leader's inadequate reactions to previous incidents involving that pilot, and the sequence of events in the aircrew response during the final flight of the aircraft. The next incident I'm going to show, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. This is the Deepwater Horizon disaster, where people were killed. I had a major pollution of the ocean and wildlife was harmed due to the fire and the oil leak that contaminated most of the Gulf Coast. Whenever they did a root cause analysis, they found that a lot of the inspections that were being done by regulatory agencies were pretty brief. They were perfunctory and they were very lax. They were just going in and checking the box, and a lot of shortcuts have been taken. And then on April 17th in 2013, firefighters responded to a fire at the West Fertilizer Company, a storage and distribution facility in West Texas. It's a town that's approximately 2,900 miles north of Waco. While crews were working to contain the fire, the site exploded. It leveled homes, businesses, and a nearby school. Federal regulators had been there on site previously and issued a report that had found inadequate emergency response coordination, because as that site continued to grow, they did not update their emergency response, and they didn't take note of where they were storing things. The federal regulator said that the way the fertilizer was stored with combustible materials nearby and the lack of ventilation were the contributing factors to the detonation. They also cited a failure to conduct safety inspections of the plant. There were shortcomings again with the emergency response plan, and there was no hazmat training, and there was poor land planning. As the plant developed and continued to grow over the years. So that's a brief insight to some of the history that's made people sit back and say, hey, where is our safety culture? What is a safety culture? What does that look like, and why is it important? Overall, your safety culture involves the extent that individuals and groups are willing to go to and will commit to a personal responsibility and accountability, preserve and enhance and communicate safety concerns, adapt and modify behavior learned from mistakes, and rewards that they're consistent with these values. Safety culture is reflected in contingency between reward systems and safety performance. It's reflected in your organization's willingness to develop and learn from errors and incidents and accidents, and enduring stable and resistant to change. You're going to hear a lot of talk when people are discussing safety culture, and they'll say safety climate. The two words get interchanged a lot. So I kind of want to discuss what the difference is when you're having these conversations. Your safety or climate is something that changes with trends. For example, let's say you get a new CEO and they want to project a climate within the company that they care for their customers. So employees going forward are going to answer their phones. Hello, this is so and so company, the place where customers come first, because we want to create that climate. Culture is different. This is a deeply embedded process of behaviors and attitudes. For example, when you have that family atmosphere, when employees treat each other with care. So when you have a life-changing event, maybe a baby's born, and everyone gets together to have a baby shower, or there's a funeral and people are there to support each other and maybe even attend. That's the difference between culture and climate. Climate is short-term. We want to have this perception. Culture is your core values and your beliefs. Having that good safety culture is important because it prevents incidents from occurring due to employees doing things a certain way for a long time that may not be the safe way. So you'll go somewhere where people maybe have like, hey, we're just going to get it done attitude. The culture is changing that. So we're doing things the right way and safety no longer takes a backseat. A lot of people think safety culture is having a good safety program. And just because, while a safety program is important, just because you have a well-written or well-organized looking safety program, it doesn't mean that you have a good culture. If the program isn't reviewed and updated as it's required, which is annually, or it's kept isolated from their employees and is not followed up with, it just kind of becomes what they call a paper tiger, right? It's the rules that are there in place, but nobody really reviews them or assures what they do. And it covers us in case OSHA comes on site, but the way we actually do things here is, X, Y, and Z. So these are usually covered in dust and not revised as often as they should be. And have you ever noticed how supervisors that have a good relationship with their crews tend to have a safer crew? In fact, studies show that good relationships tend to be associated with all kinds of good performance. And why do you think that that is? What do good relationships have to do with safety? The link is discretionary effort. Exceptional safety happens when people look for and report hazards, give peers feedback on safe and at-risk behavior, and most difficult at all, admit when they've made a mistake, reporting that near miss on themselves or that first aid so that lessons can be learned by everyone else that's on the team. So as I spoke to, discretionary effort is going above and beyond those basic requirements, and it rarely occurs in the context of poor employee management relationships. Many employees think of safety as a compliance issue, getting people to comply with safety rules, regulations, and procedures. But what it really is, and what you want to do, is go beyond compliance and create a high-performance safety culture. Then discretionary effort is going to be a requirement. You don't get this type of engagement of people reporting near misses and especially telling on themselves even when safety, sorry, I'm overcoming a cold. You don't get this kind of engagement in safety when employees dislike, distrust, or fear their bosses. If I'm afraid that you're going to reprimand me, fire me, or publicly shame me because I've had this near miss or this first aid, I'm less likely to report that to you. I need to have that relationship with you that makes it okay for me to come to you and talk about these things. If people think that being honest about a safety infraction is going to hurt them, then they're not going to be open and honest. The way you can create discretionary effort, sorry, allowing somebody else in, there we go. So discretionary effort is created using positive reinforcement. Research shows that when people are recognized for what they do well around safety, and when reporting problems and concerns is met with reinforcing consequences, such as, and when I say consequences, I don't mean you're in trouble, such as joint problem solving and problem resolution, employees are going to be more engaged in safety. If I come to you with a concern and I'm heard, and we work together to fix that, then I'm going to continue that relationship with you and coming to you. One thing to note, a good relationship doesn't mean that you're best friends. So you can have discretionary effort in your relationship by its mutual respect, and positive reinforcement is disabled by poor relationships. Not only are people less willing to use positive reinforcement within the context of a poor relationship, but when they do, that reinforcement is less effective. So if I come to you and I tell you you've done a really good job, or I try to show concern for your safety, but you don't really like me or care what I think, my attempts at that reinforcement are less likely to be effective. So having a good relationship doesn't mean necessarily being nice all the time or being soft on safety. Good relationship at work includes accountability and constructive feedback. It's also not about being friends with your direct reports or being someone they want to go to a ball game with. A positive relationship isn't necessarily that your personality is exactly the same. You don't have to be outgoing, overly friendly, or the life of the party. You just have to really be consistent. Include mutual trust, respect as a foundation of your relationship. Some people come to us and they'll say, well, how do I develop that good relationship with my direct report? You want to set clear expectations. Using pinpointed actionable words to ensure that you're understood and there's clarity of your expectations. You want to avoid assumptions. Ask the person that you're talking to, do they understand the expectations that you're setting for them? Listening, using active listening skills such as maintaining eye contact, using appropriate facial expressions, paraphrasing, asking questions to demonstrate understanding. You don't want to be looking at your computer or looking down at your phone or looking otherwise engaged when people are talking to you. Acknowledge when someone's doing a good job. You don't want to just highlight mistakes or problems. You want to track the nature of your interactions. Good leaders, they maintain a high ratio of positive to constructive comments and discussions. Ask questions. So to understand your problems and issues, it's important to ask questions and avoid jumping to conclusions. There's always more to every story. Always ask questions to uncover the details. Ask your employees for feedback about your own effectiveness and areas for improvement. Seek detailed information about what you do well and what you need to do differently to be more effective. Demonstrate that you're listening and that you're working to improve your own actions. Most importantly, avoid blame. So people's behaviors make sense to them, even if it doesn't make sense to you. Find out what consequences were in place that led to the undesired behavior. Find out what led to this accident, what led to this person not feeling comfortable talking to you or just not following the safety program. Make sure that when you're having these conversations, you're responding fairly you want to respond fairly to incidents and safety infractions. Better incident investigations lead to fair responses. Admit when you make mistakes. Acknowledging your own mistakes helps us establish that mistakes are expected and that learning from them is critical. Solicit input and opinions from your team and from your direct reports. Asking for input and advice leads to better solutions, and it also demonstrates respect. Follow through on your commitments. Consistent follow through is essential for building trust and respect. Use whatever memory devices you need to be sure to do what you say that you're going to do. Be there to remove obstacles for your team. Provide feedback as you're going through these plans and you're getting this insight from your employees, make sure that you're providing them feedback on how their contributions are helping the company, how they're helping grow your culture. So everybody's familiar with red flags. The red flag is used throughout history as a signal that there's a problem or that you're in danger. They encourage people to stop what they're doing and take notice. Some of the indicators of possible red flags within your company, and these could be attributed to either individuals, groups, or both, is multiple safety violations, failure for employees to comply with company safety management system, managers who push practices that prioritize profits over safety. You know, when you've just left that safety meeting and everyone's been told how they're going to do a job safely and everyone's ready to start that job, you've completed your JHA, and then the general manager comes in and says, hey guys, I know we just talked about all that and that's great, but we need to get this done quickly. So we're going to go around this system. You're completely destroying your safety culture at that point. In a negative safety culture, production pressure tends to take over precedence of safety, and the overall goal becomes just get it done. And this leads to injuries because employees are working faster, they're working unsafe, and they've basically just kind of been knocked off of everything that they discussed before they started working. It also shows a lack of management commitment to safety. The managers can't say one thing in the conference room and then be seen doing something else. And then last, something that I encounter pretty often whenever I'm out in the field is that old school mentality of, well, this is the way we've always gotten it done. Too many times safety isn't given the necessary resources it deserves. So you're going to want to make sure that when you're doing your annual budget, that you're setting that money aside, that time aside to train, to make sure you have PPE, to make sure that everyone receives what they need to do their job safely. Many times, organizations with that old school philosophy, management employees don't really want to learn or use anything new, and that includes safety as well. So now it's time to kind of think about where your company is regarding safety and safety culture. What type of culture exists within your work environment? Creating a positive safety culture is not something that's done overnight or in a week or two. It takes a lot of time. It takes commitment by everyone. And having a positive safety culture means that everyone takes responsibility for safety each and every day. Oops, sorry. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this analogy, the iceberg, where the accident is just the beginning. It's the top of the iceberg. It's where a lot of your costs and issues involving an accident include both direct and indirect expenses. So your direct expenses are at the top, right? Accidents cost can be, that's your costs that are recoverable and visible, but those that are unrecoverable and hidden below the waterline sometimes are greater. It's estimated that the hidden cost of an accident can be up to 10 times greater than the insured cost. So your direct cost is things like wage loss, medical cost, physical rehab, lost time. These costs are calculated pretty easily after the injury or illness has occurred and the employee is back to work. Your indirect cost is something that's normally taken care of by the organization and includes, but isn't limited to, the downtime, maybe equipment, building damage, the damage that's done to the morale of the injured employee and their coworkers, the risk to your reputation. A lot of companies don't plan for these types of costs when they're doing their budget, because workers' comp premiums can be planned for because those are a known cost up front. But not too many organizations plan for instance, a forklift striking a building or an employee falling through an unguarded skylight, causing injury and property damages. Getting everyone on the same page and heading the same way, it can be painstaking and time consuming. The good news is that it can be done. A few signs that you're headed in the right direction is everyone in your organization feels involved. Your employees are fully on board with positive safety culture because they've been a part of the process from the very beginning. They've helped make decisions rather than just being handed a bunch of policies and dictated for management. Communication is open, which allows employees to participate by being encouraged to make suggestions, to be on health and safety panels like safety committees, mentoring new employees like with your short service employee program, and generally just being motivated to take ownership of their own safety. They're empowered to make those safety interventions as they need to. Another sign that you're on the right track is you notice that at your company, you're celebrating the positives. Bad things are going to happen. They will, they do. But if you're always looking for the positives and letting people know when they've done a good job, and you're encouraging employees to continually raise their safety performance, and you're recognizing them when they do, then you're on the right track. If you come across someone who's correctly wearing their PPE and they are doing their correct safety processes, stop and make that intervention as well. It takes just a second to say, hey, I'm recognizing that you're doing the right thing, and I wanted to let you know that I appreciate you working safe. A quick word is sometimes all that's really needed to make someone's day and inspire them to keep up the good work. This one kind of goes without saying, but you're on the right track when you know that your employees are benefiting from safety training. Your employees are going to benefit from safety training, which not only provides them the skills for best practice, but also this also demonstrates your commitment to safety to them. They'll have bought into a safety culture because they see that their management team is also adhering to the policies and procedures that they're expected to follow. Nothing else better creates the feeling of being a team than everyone doing their bit to achieve a common goal. Data is used to help employees. So within your organization, are you keeping a metrics? Are you seeing your incident accident trends? And as we talked about a little bit earlier, it's important to celebrate the positives. Well, it's just important to identify success stories. Using data makes it easier to do. If you're tracking those near misses, and that is like your best way, that is your best friend when it comes to, or your best data when it comes to having that safety meeting and really explaining to everybody how these interactions, how these interventions are stopping accidents from happening on your site. Using this data makes it easier for you, and it gives you as a manager, or gives your managers, a clear indication of who's doing what correctly and who's really contributing to the positive safety culture. You know, safety is part of your culture when you see JHAs are not only being completed, but are being participated in. By making safety activities part of your overall operation, your employees don't see it as just another thing that they're having to do. They're not just checking a box. It's not the new and latest company initiative. Rather, treating health and safety as an essential part of daily operations and processes, it means that the workers are encouraged to see that it's an important part of their job. They're starting their day with safety on their mind. Another indicator that, or another good sign that you have a strong safety culture or are working towards one, is knowing that accidents don't happen by chance. All accidents are 100% avoidable. Instead of looking at them as a one-off or an isolated event and then pointing fingers at individual workers when they do happen, managers are actively looking at close calls or accidents to gauge a collection of occurrences and look for those root causes. Your company understands that by blaming members of your team only works to deteriorate relationships within management, while working together to investigate and analyze these where something went wrong helps employees contribute to their own safety in the future. Management has a definite role in establishing the positive safety culture. Management leads the program effort by establishing the roles and responsibilities, providing an open and positive environment that encourages communication. Your management team should be identifying a frontline person or people, such as like a safety committee or a safety team, to be responsible for safety performance. The things that you're going to need constantly from management is commitment. Commitment is establishing that formalized process, right? to respond to safety concerns and conduct a blame-free investigation of close calls and incidents. Management also should review all serious incident reports and determine those contributing factors and communicate those findings throughout the organization. Once you've identified what those things are, it is imperative that you share that with the team so that everyone learns from it. You also have to have support from management. Managers need to lead by example, provide the required resources, and communicate that they're committed to the organization's safety goals. They need to see you walking the talk. Management needs to communicate. Communication is the key to a healthy, safe, and positive workplace. It's needed to ensure that roles and directions are understood, to warn against dangers and avoid unsafe practices, promote critical emergency response, and particularly just learn about and from the concerns and hazards that your workers encounter. Lastly, managers need to be involved. Managers and executives can show their commitment to safety by joining periodic walk-around inspections. So whenever you have your superintendents or your leads or your safety professionals out there doing those walkthroughs, it's imperative that they also see the managers and their company executives out there with them, because they're going to see firsthand. Well, it's important for them to see that you're committed and that you want to see how things are being done. And then you as management, it's important because you're going to see firsthand how hazards are identified and addressed. You're going to see how your leads and your safety professionals are speaking with employees about safety and hazard reporting and training. Another good step as management team is when you're developing job descriptions, make sure you're including safety in that. Make sure that whenever you're developing something new for the company as a new employee, even if you're the receptionist, I also want to speak to how you impact safety in the company, because safety is an organizational goal and it's everyone's responsibility. Empower your workers to stop their work and others' work if they feel a situation is unsafe. Go further than just having that stop work authority policy in place, but actually empower the workers to enforce it. And then delegate responsibility for safety at every level of the company. Management should establish both formal and informal methods of communication. Some methods are considered safety bulletin boards. So maybe in an area where your employees are gathering, you have that bulletin board or that newsletter that goes out to the company via email and is shared. Toolbox talks at the beginning of the job to start your job with safety at the forefront of your mind. Completing and participating in those JSAs. Toolbox talks and JSAs usually take about 5 minutes. So, and it's easy to do. It's a good investment of your time. Communication needs to be a two-way process. So when you're having those conversations, encourage your workforce to talk back to you, to give their input, to help you identify those hazards while you're there on site. Consider a safety committee. Safety committees bring together workers from across the organization. They have scheduled meetings where these issues are addressed. So as the safety person, if I'm in the front of the facility, it benefits me to have someone from production in the back of the facility who sees things that I don't see on a daily basis to be a part of that committee and highlight those concerns. That's where you can really create and nurture a culture of safety. Employees need to also take an active role. So good news, managers and leaders, it's not just on you. Employees need to take an active role in establishing a positive safety culture, and are many times the hinge pin when it comes to keeping the positive culture in place. Employees need to accept responsibility for safety. They need to follow the safety policies and procedures. They need to be taking initiative, reporting those hazards, reporting those near misses and safety issues to you and to your safety teams. They need to commit to the organization's safety program, and they need to be a team player. To have and maintain that positive safety culture for all concerned, need to realize that safety is everyone's responsibility, not just management's or the employees alone. And it's absolutely not 100% just the safety person's job. So as an organization, How do you know when you've arrived when it comes to having a positive safety culture? So a few indicators are safety is a core value. You have a strong leadership team that's enforcing these safety values. You have high standards for performance, and you allow reevaluation of methods. If you realize something's not working, you reevaluate it and you fix it. And you also have mutual trust amongst your team. You're going to have regularly scheduled safety committee and employee safety training. Good relations exist between management and employees. Unsafe work behaviors are reported and corrective actions are monitored. You also are going to know that you've arrived when there's adherence to safety controls. So when you're doing those walkthroughs, there's safety guards on the machinery. You're walking through and people are wearing appropriate PPE. There's appropriate signage in place. Lockout tagouts being enforced. Safety policies and procedures are followed. Your stop work authority is actually practiced. This is your employees are empowered to report unsafe conditions as well as stop their own work and their coworkers' work if they deem it's unsafe. And that's not necessarily just for clarity because people kind of raise their eyebrows when it comes to stop work authority. It's not you're shutting down the entire site because you feel it's unsafe. You're saying, hey, this process right here feels unsafe. Can we stop work for a minute, look at what we're doing, talk about it, and then move forward. You're also going to have that open and effective communication, which is kind of what I just touched on, between management employees and vice versa. And this is the benefit of having that safety committee that we were talking about earlier. And just keep in mind that to have a good positive safety culture, it's going to take leadership and support, teamwork and commitment, and constant open communication. The steps to creating that positive safety culture include, or but not limited to, awareness, support, and cooperation from management. You're going to communicate the intent to all employees. Review your documentation, programs, and policies. Review your injuries, determine your types, your frequencies, your trends. Conduct site tours to determine task, logistics, safety, and safety issues. Excuse me. Determines employee safety's awareness and attitudes. This is done through questionnaires or surveys. Sometimes you might have a drop box, like a suggestion box, where they can be anonymous and drop that off to you. Ensure that whenever you do have injuries, there's timely reporting of those injuries in the first aid cases and your near misses, and evaluate those with your investigation procedures. Sorry, my voice is in and out. So what I'm going to finish with is the last thought is that safety culture is the attitude of employees. It's the way that everyone is thinking that makes employees follow the rules and regulations in the workplace. And we have about 10 minutes left. I'm sorry, I know I was kind of rushing through there at the end because I wanted to give you guys time for questions. Does anybody have any questions, comments that they would like to share? I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that we can look at each other. Here we go. And you're all on mute, so just feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. And you can also raise your hand if you like, and I'll call on you.
What are your thoughts on, I know I've been a part of some safety teams. What are your thoughts when it comes to like incentives, like gift cards and things like that?
That's a good question. And the most important thing when you're coming up with an incentive program is you want to make sure, and this is where it can get a little dicey with OSHA, is you want to make sure that your incentive program is not incentivizing people to not report injuries. So I'm not going to say, hey guys, I'm going to give you a deep sea fishing trip or a Yeti cooler or whatever if there's no accidents, because then that tells me as an employee, hey, if I really want to go on that trip, all I have to do is not report that near miss. I don't have to report this first aid. It's not that bad. No one's going to know. So you just want to make sure that you set it up in such a way that I'm not encouraged to not report. Ways that I've seen this be very successful and things that I've done in the past is to set up more of like a lottery system, if you will. So let's say I have a BBS program in place, or I have stop cards, or I want people to report more near misses, which I highly encourage because this gives you all the material you need for your safety meetings. So you go through these stop cards or these near misses and you evaluate them and see which ones are really good and solid, because you don't want just the ones that people are pencil whipping so that they can get in the contest. So now let's say I've got 15 really solid ones and I know who submitted them because they submitted these near miss reports. And I want to give these people, I want to reward this behavior and I want to encourage to go forward. So now at my next safety meeting, I have a drawing and all 15 of these people are in the hat. And whenever I pull you, I'm going to explain this beforehand because these people gave me solid near misses. I put them in this basket. I'm going to draw a name and whoever wins, and it doesn't have to be a huge monetary gift, is getting a $25 gift card, a $50 gift card, whatever that may be, whatever that looks like for you and your resources. That's a way that you can incentivize your employees to do the right thing, and you are actually encouraging them to report instead of encouraging them not to. Anything else? You're welcome. Any other burning questions out there? Okay, well then I will go ahead and wrap our session. Elizabeth, did you have anything else you wanted to say before I close out?
No, I don't think so. I just appreciate your time, and that was a wonderful presentation, and I know we can all benefit from that. I always remind our clients that, the culture starts with the leadership, and if your employees see the leadership doing those things, and it's just the culture just kind of evolves and sets the tone. So I do appreciate your time. And if anyone does have questions, feel free to send those over to me and I'd be happy to get those over. I know sometimes we can get off of webinar and it's like, oh, I should ask that question. So don't hesitate to send those questions if those do come to you at a later point in time. But I will be sending the recording over. I know sometimes people's schedules aren't where they can attend right at a certain time. So I'll send those over if you want to share this with anyone internally within your organization. And if I don't see y'all, have a Merry Christmas. But I hope to see many of you at our Clear Up the Chaos next Tuesday at 10 a.m. So if you haven't signed up for that, take a moment to do that today. And I'm always here. So feel free to reach out. Thanks so much, guys.
Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.